The coins hit the marble floor like gunshots in the silence. Clara Bennett's hands trembled as she knelt, scrambling to gather the scattered change from her broken purse, quarters, dimes, the last of her dignity rolling across the restaurant floor. She didn't notice the room had gone still, didn't see every head turned toward the entrance, didn't understand why the world seemed to hold its breath. Then a hand, strong, expensive, commanding, reached down beside hers. When she looked up, she met the darkest eyes she'd ever seen, eyes that belonged to Matteo De Luca, eyes that would change everything. Follow Clara's impossible journey to the end. If this story grabs you, hit that like button and comment your city below. I want to see how far this tale travels. The difference between exhaustion and collapse, Clara had learned, was about 45 minutes. She had exactly that much time to get home, peel off her scrubs, and fall into bed before her body simply gave up. 16 hours on the surgical floor at Mount Sinai had left her feet swollen, her back screaming, and her mind fuzzy around the edges. The double shift had been voluntary. She needed every dollar she could scrape together now that she was 22 weeks pregnant, now that she was doing this alone. The restaurant shouldn't have been on her route home. Lucia's was the kind of place where Manhattan's elite gathered. All white tablecloths and soft lighting, where the cheapest bottle of wine cost more than Clara made in a day. But she'd promised Simone, her only real friend at the hospital, that she'd pick up the earring Simone had left behind after her anniversary dinner 2 nights ago. The host had been holding it at the front desk. Clara pushed through the heavy glass door, immediately aware of how out of place she looked. Her scrubs were rumpled, her hair falling out of its ponytail, and she probably smelled like antiseptic and sweat. A few diners glanced up, their expressions ranging from curious to vaguely dismissive, before returning to their conversations. She kept her eyes down, heading straight for the host stand. "Hi, I'm here to pick up an earring for Simone Rodriguez." Clara's voice came out smaller than she intended. The fatigue was making everything harder. The hostess, perfectly made up, not a hair out of place, gave her a tight smile. Of course. Just one moment. While she waited, Clara shifted her weight from one aching foot to the other. Her purse, a cheap crossbody bag she'd bought at a discount store, felt heavy on her shoulder. Inside it was everything that mattered. Her wallet, with exactly $43 until payday, her phone with a cracked screen, her keys, and the ultrasound photo she'd gotten that afternoon. The one that showed her daughter's tiny profile, the curve of her forehead, the button of her nose. Clara had looked at that photo at least 20 times since leaving the clinic. Her daughter, her responsibility, her future. The hostess returned with a small envelope. "Here you are." "Thank you." Clara took it, turning to leave. That's when it happened. The strap of her purse, already fraying from months of use, chose that moment to give up completely. The bag dropped, hitting the marble floor with a sound that seemed impossibly loud. The zipper, which Clara had been meaning to replace, burst open. Everything spilled out, coins scattered in every direction, rolling across the polished marble with a metallic clatter that echoed through the restaurant. Her wallet skidded under a nearby table. The ultrasound photo fluttered through the air like a leaf. Her keys landed with a harsh jangle. Lipstick, tampons she wouldn't need for months, loose receipts, a protein bar, all of it spread across the floor in a mortifying display of her entire life laid bare. The restaurant went quiet. Not the gentle quiet of intimate conversation, but the sharp, sudden silence of something unexpected happening. Clara felt heat flood her face as she dropped to her knees, scrambling to gather everything. Her hands shook as she reached for the coins, trying to scoop them up, but they kept rolling away. A quarter spun in a slow circle before falling flat. A dime skittered toward a man's polished shoe. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, to no one and everyone. "I'm so sorry." She crawled forward, reaching for her wallet under the table, her pregnant belly making the movement awkward. Tears pricked at her eyes. Of all the ways to end this horrible, endless day, this had to be the worst. She could feel dozens of eyes on her, watching the poor nurse in dirty scrubs chase her belongings across the floor of Manhattan's finest Italian restaurant. Then the room changed. Clara felt it before she understood it. A shift in the air, a collective intake of breath. The silence deepened, became something else entirely, something charged with awareness and caution. Even in her humiliation, she registered it. The way conversations didn't just pause but stopped mid-sentence. The way silverware ceased clinking against plates, the way the very atmosphere seemed to compress. Someone had entered the restaurant. She looked up from where she knelt, one hand still reaching for a runaway penny, and saw him. He stood in the entrance like he owned it, owned the restaurant, owned the building, owned the entire block. Matteo DeLuca was 34 years old and dressed in a suit that probably cost more than Clara's entire year's rent. Navy blue, perfectly tailored to broad shoulders and a lean frame. His dark hair was styled back, emphasizing a face that belonged on Renaissance sculptures, all sharp angles and classical proportions. But it was his eyes that stopped her. Dark brown, almost black, and utterly commanding. Those eyes swept the room with casual authority, cataloging everything, assessing everyone. Behind him stood two men who were clearly security. Big, watchful, their eyes constantly moving. They positioned themselves near the entrance, a subtle barrier between their employer and the rest of the world. The host rushed forward. "Mr. DeLuca, your table is ready. We've prepared—" Matteo raised one hand, a small gesture that silenced the man immediately. His eyes had found Clara, still kneeling on the floor surrounded by her scattered belongings. For a long moment he simply looked at her. Then, to her absolute shock, he walked toward her. His footsteps were measured, deliberate. Each one seemed to echo in the silent restaurant. He stopped directly in front of her, and Clara became acutely aware of her position, on her knees, looking up at him, vulnerable and disheveled, while he stood above her in perfect control. Then Matteo DeLuca did something that made the entire room collectively hold its breath. He knelt down. Not a crouch, not a brief bend, but a full kneel on the expensive marble floor in his expensive suit. He picked up a quarter, then another coin, his movements careful and unhurried. Clara stared at him, frozen, as he gathered several more coins and held them out to her. "I believe these are yours," he said. His voice was low, rich, with the faintest trace of an accent that suggested Italian heritage, but American upbringing. It was the kind of voice that made people listen, made them obey. But right now, it was gentle, almost kind. "Thank you," Clara managed, taking the coins from his outstretched hand. Their fingers brushed briefly, his warm and dry, hers trembling and cold. "I'm sorry for the disruption." "You didn't disrupt anything." He reached for her wallet under the nearby table, pulling it out with easy grace. "A broken purse is hardly a crime." Clara tried to laugh, but it came out shaky. "Tell that to everyone staring at us." "Let them stare." He handed her the wallet, then spotted the ultrasound photo that had landed near his knee. He picked it up carefully, looking at it for just a moment before offering it to her. "This seems important." Clara's hand shot out, taking the photo perhaps too quickly. "It is. How far along?" The question was asked casually, but Clara heard the attention behind it. She clutched the ultrasound to her chest. 22 weeks. Matteo nodded slowly, his dark eyes moving from her face to her midsection, where her scrubs hid the small swell of her pregnancy. When his gaze returned to her face, something had shifted in it, a calculation being made, a decision being reached. "And the father?" he asked. The question was too intimate, too personal for a stranger to ask, even one who was helping her pick up her spilled belongings. Clara felt her spine straighten despite her exhaustion. Not in the picture. His loss. The certainty in those two words made Clara's breath catch. Matteo said it like a fact, like a truth so obvious it required no debate. He gathered the last few items, her keys, the protein bar, a pen that had rolled near his shoe, and stood, offering her his hand. Clara hesitated. There was something about accepting that hand that felt significant, dangerous even. But her knees hurt, her back ached, and pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. She placed her hand in his and let him pull her to her feet. He was tall. She'd known that from seeing him across the floor, but standing close to him, she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. He didn't release her hand immediately, and she didn't pull away. For a suspended moment they stood there, connected, while the restaurant watched. "Thank you," Clara said finally, gently extracting her hand. "Really, you didn't have to help." "I know." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, offering it to her. Matteo DeLuca. Clara took the card reflexively. Heavy stock, embossed lettering. DeLuca Holdings. An address in Midtown. A phone number. Clara Bennett. Clara. He said her name like he was testing it, seeing how it felt. You're a nurse? She glanced down at her scrubs. Surgical floor at Mount Sinai. 16-hour shift? How did you... She stopped. Of course he knew. He was the kind of man who noticed things, who read people. Yes. Then you should eat something before you go home. It wasn't quite a suggestion, wasn't quite a command. Something in between that made it hard to refuse. I can't. I mean, I appreciate the offer, but... Clara gestured vaguely at herself, at the restaurant, at the obvious disparity between them. But what? But I look like I've been wrestling patients for 16 hours. My purse just exploded all over your restaurant's floor, and I'm approximately 3 minutes from falling asleep standing up. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. Exhaustion was making her honest. The corner of Mateo's mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, but close. My restaurant? Heat flooded Clara's face again. I didn't mean, I just assumed. You assumed correctly. I own it. He gestured to a table in the corner, one that had mysteriously remained empty despite the restaurant being nearly full. Sit, eat, then I'll have my driver take you home. I can't accept that. Why not? Because I don't know you. Because this is... She struggled for the right word. Excessive. For helping me pick up some quarters. Mateo's expression shifted, became more serious. I'm not being generous, Clara. I'm being practical. You're exhausted, pregnant, and alone. If you pass out on the subway, it won't be my quarters you'll need to worry about. The bluntness should have offended her. Instead, it cut through her reflexive politeness and hit something true. She was exhausted. She was pregnant. She was alone. And the thought of navigating the crowded subway right now made her want to cry. 30 minutes, Mateo continued, his voice softening slightly. Eat something warm, drink some water. Then my driver will take you home safely. That's all I'm offering. Why? The question escaped before Clara could stop it. Why do you care? Something flickered across his face, too quick for her to read. Because someone should. The words hit her square in the chest. Because someone should. How long had it been since someone cared whether she ate, whether she got home safely, whether she was okay? Weeks? Months? Since before Marcus left, certainly. Since before she'd found out she was pregnant and watched her baby's father walk out the door without looking back. 30 minutes, she heard herself say. But I'm paying for my food. No. Mr. DeLuca, Mateo. And no, you're not paying. I own the restaurant, remember? The food is free either way. The only question is whether you're too stubborn to accept a meal when you clearly need one. Clara wanted to argue, wanted to maintain her independence, her dignity, but her daughter chose that moment to do a small flip inside her, a flutter of movement that reminded Clara she wasn't just taking care of herself anymore. Okay, she said quietly. 30 minutes. Mateo's nod was approving. He gestured to his security, who immediately created a subtle perimeter as he guided Clara to the corner table. The host appeared instantly with menus, water, his demeanor transformed from cool professionalism to deferential attention. Mr. DeLuca, shall I send over? Give us a few minutes. Mateo pulled out Clara's chair himself, waiting until she sat before taking the seat across from her. The security detail positioned themselves nearby, but not intrusively, watching the room with practiced awareness. Clara looked around, acutely aware that every person in the restaurant was trying very hard to pretend they weren't watching their table. This is going to be the talk of Mount Sinai tomorrow. Why? Because someone probably recognized me. Someone always does. And now they'll have seen me having dinner with... She trailed off, unsure how to finish that sentence. With? Mateo prompted, one eyebrow raised. With someone clearly important. I'm not important. I just own things. That's the definition of important in Manhattan. He laughed then, a real laugh that transformed his face from severe to something warmer. Fair point. But for what it's worth, I don't care what people say about me. Haven't for years. Must be nice. It is. He slid a menu toward her. What sounds good? Clara opened the menu and nearly closed it immediately when she saw the prices. She'd known it would be expensive, but this was beyond expensive. This was obscene. I can't eat $40 pasta. You can and you will. Doctor's orders. You're not a doctor. No, but you are a nurse, which means you know better than most that you need proper nutrition right now. He leaned back in his chair, completely at ease. So stop thinking about the prices and tell me what you actually want to eat. Clara bit her lip, looking at the menu again. The truth was, everything sounded amazing. After months of cheap takeout and cereal for dinner, the descriptions alone made her mouth water. The chicken marsala, she admitted finally, and maybe the house salad. Matteo signaled to a waiter who appeared instantly. The lady will have the chicken marsala and house salad. I'll have the osso buco, and bring us the burrata to start. Right away, Mr. De Luca. As the waiter disappeared, Clara leaned forward slightly. I didn't agree to an appetizer. Consider it an executive decision. Matteo poured water from the pitcher into her glass. You need to eat more than a salad and an entree. Bossy. Practical. There's a difference? Sometimes. He settled back, studying her with those penetrating dark eyes. Tell me about yourself, Clara Bennett. There's not much to tell. I doubt that. Seriously, I'm a nurse. I work too much. I'm pregnant. That's about it. Where are you from? Rochester, upstate. Came to the city for nursing school at NYU. Stayed for the job opportunities. Family? Clara's hand tightened around her water glass. My parents died in a car accident when I was 19. No siblings. So it's just me. Matteo's expression softened, genuine sympathy crossing his features. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. The lie was automatic, protective. It would never be a long time ago. The absence of her parents was a constant ache, made sharper now by the knowledge that her daughter would never meet them. What about you? Are you from New York? Born here, raised here, will probably die here. He said it matter-of-factly, like he'd made peace with his fate. My father built the business. I'm just running it. De Luca Holdings, what does that mean exactly? Real estate, mostly. Restaurants, some import-export, various investments. The description was vague, practiced, the kind of answer that provided information without revealing anything. Nothing terribly interesting. Before Clara could press further, the waiter returned with the burrata, a creamy ball of cheese surrounded by heirloom tomatoes, fresh basil, and what looked like homemade bread. The presentation was beautiful, almost too beautiful to eat. Please, Matteo gestured to the plate. Help yourself. Clara took a piece of bread, topped it with some of the burrata and tomatoes, and took a bite. The flavors exploded across her tongue, rich, fresh, perfectly seasoned. She couldn't stop the small sound of pleasure that escaped her. Good? Matteo asked, amusement clear in his voice. Incredible. Clara took another bite, then another. She hadn't realized how hungry she was until she started eating. The protein bar she'd eaten at lunch felt like days ago. They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes. Clara was aware of the other diners still sneaking glances their way, aware of the security detail's constant vigilance, aware that this entire situation was surreal. But the food was too good, and she was too tired to care. So, Matteo said eventually, 22 weeks. Do you know if it's a boy or girl? Clara's hand moved instinctively to her stomach. Girl. I found out today, actually. And how do you feel about that? Terrified. The honesty surprised her. She hadn't admitted that to anyone, not even Simone. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm 26 years old, single, barely making rent. I don't know the first thing about raising a daughter. Does anyone really know what they're doing? People with partners do. People with families. People with support systems and money and experience. Money doesn't guarantee competence. Neither do partners or families. Matteo's voice was firm, but not unkind. You're already doing the hard part, caring enough to be terrified. Clara looked up at him, surprised by the insight. You sound like you have experience with this. Not personally. I don't have children, but I've known enough new parents to recognize the pattern. The ones who are scared they'll mess up are usually the ones who do it right. That's a nice theory. It's more than theory. He paused as the waiter cleared the burrata plate and brought their salads. My sister had her first baby last year. She spent the entire pregnancy convinced she'd be terrible at it. Now she's the most competent person I know. You have a sister? 2 sisters and a brother. I'm the oldest. And you're all in the family business? Matteo's expression became more guarded. In various capacities. Clara recognized the wall going up, the subtle shift from openness to caution. She'd hit on something he didn't want to discuss. Fair enough. They were strangers, after all. She had no right to his family's secrets. The main courses arrived, and Clara's attention was immediately captured by the chicken marsala. It smelled divine, looked even better. She took a bite and nearly groaned. After 16 hours of hospital food and vending machine coffee, this felt like a revelation. "Thank you," she said after a moment. "Really, I needed this more than I realized." "You're welcome." Matteo cut into his ossobuco with practiced ease. "Though I should confess something." Clara's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "That sounds ominous." "Not ominous, just honest." He met her eyes steadily. "I didn't help you just to be kind." A chill ran down her spine despite the warm restaurant. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I noticed you the moment you walked in. Before your purse broke. Before anything happened." He set down his knife and fork, giving her his complete attention. "I saw a woman who was exhausted but still standing, pregnant but still working, alone but not broken. And I thought, that's someone worth knowing." Clara's heart hammered in her chest. "You don't know me." "Not yet, but I'd like to." "Why?" "Because you interest me." "That's not a reason." "It's the only reason that matters." Matteo leaned forward slightly, his intensity palpable even across the table. "I'm not going to lie to you, Clara. I'm not going to pretend this was coincidence or pure altruism. I saw you. I was intrigued, and I'm choosing to act on that interest. You can tell me to back off right now, and I will. But I hope you won't." Clara should have been alarmed, should have been gathering her things and heading for the door. This was too much, too fast, too intense. But something in his directness, his refusal to hide behind polite pretense, made her pause. How many men in her life had lied to her? Marcus had lied about wanting the baby, about staying, about loving her. Her ex before that had lied about cheating. Lies wrapped in smiles and false promises. Matteo De Luca was offering her something different, uncomfortable honesty. "I don't date," she heard herself say. "I can't. I have too much on my plate and I'm pregnant." "Yes, I noticed." His lips curved slightly. "I'm not asking you to date me, Clara. I'm asking you to let me know you. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Absolutely. Dating has expectations, timelines, pressure. Getting to know someone is just time spent, conversations, dinners, maybe. No agenda beyond learning who you are. And if I say no, then I'll have my driver take you home, you'll finish your meal, and we'll part as two people who had a nice dinner together." His voice remained even, giving her space. "No pressure? No obligation? Your choice." Clara looked down at her plate, at the half-eaten chicken marsala that was probably the best thing she'd tasted in months. She thought about her empty apartment, her empty life, the months of isolation that stretched ahead. She thought about doing this pregnancy alone, raising her daughter alone, facing every challenge alone because she'd convinced herself it was safer that way. She thought about the ultrasound photo in her purse and wondered what kind of life she wanted to give her daughter. One built on fear and isolation, or one where taking calculated risks sometimes led to unexpected connections? "Okay," she said quietly, looking up to meet Matteo's eyes. "Get to know me, but I have conditions." Name them." 1. No lies. Ever. If I ask you something and you don't want to answer, say that, but don't lie." "Agreed." 2. I need transparency about what you want from me. If that changes, you tell me." "Done." 3. My daughter comes first, always. If this, whatever this is, interferes with that, it ends. No negotiation." Matteo's expression turned serious, almost reverent. "Clara, I would never ask you to put anything before your child. That's not negotiable for me either." The sincerity in his voice made her chest tighten. "Okay, then, okay." "Okay." He picked up his wine glass. When had that arrived? And raised it slightly. "To getting to know you, Clara Bennett." She lifted her water glass in response. "To honesty, apparently." They clinked glasses, and Clara tried to ignore the feeling that she'd just set something irreversible into motion. The rational part of her brain screamed warnings about powerful men and their intentions, about moving too fast, about protecting herself. But the exhausted, lonely part of her that had been fighting alone for so long whispered something different. Maybe, just maybe, it was okay to let someone in. The rest of the meal passed in easier conversation. Mateo asked about her work, and Clara found herself telling him stories from the surgical floor, the strange things people swallowed, the ridiculous injuries, the moments of grace that made the hard days worthwhile. He listened with genuine interest, asking follow-up questions, laughing at the right moments. In turn, he told her about the restaurant business, the challenges of maintaining quality across multiple locations, the delicate balance of pleasing customers while staying true to a vision. He was careful, she noticed, to keep things surface level. He never mentioned specifics about his other businesses, never dropped names or revealed too much. But the glimpses he gave her suggested someone who took his responsibilities seriously. By the time dessert arrived, tiramisu that Mateo had ordered without asking, correctly guessing she'd never turned down chocolate, Clara was struggling to keep her eyes open. The combination of good food, warm atmosphere, and bone-deep exhaustion was finally catching up with her. "Time to get you home," Mateo said gently, signaling to the waiter. "Before you fall asleep in your tiramisu." "I'm fine," Clara protested, even as she stifled a yawn. "You're exhausted, and I promise to get you home safely." He stood, offering his hand again. "Come on." This time, Clara took his hand without hesitation. He helped her to her feet, steadied her when she swayed slightly, and kept a careful hand at the small of her back as they walked toward the entrance. The security detail moved with them, creating that subtle protective barrier. Outside, a black car waited at the curb. One of the security guards opened the back door, while Mateo helped Clara inside. The interior was all leather and luxury, warm and comfortable. She sank into the seat with a sigh of relief. Mateo slid in beside her. "Where do you live?" Clara rattled off her address in Washington Heights, watching his face for judgment. The neighborhood wasn't dangerous exactly, but it wasn't Upper East Side either. If Mateo thought anything about it, he didn't show it. He simply relayed the address to the driver and settled back. The car pulled into traffic smoothly. Through the tinted windows, Clara watched Manhattan slide by. Late-night pedestrians, glowing storefronts, the organized chaos of the city that never slept. Beside her, Mateo was quiet, giving her space. "Can I ask you something?" Clara said after a few minutes. "Anything." "Why do you have security guards?" Mateo was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was carefully neutral. "My family has been in New York business for a long time. We've made friends and enemies. The security is precautionary." "That's a very diplomatic answer." "It's an honest one." Clara turned to look at him, studying his profile in the dim light of the car. "Are you dangerous, Mateo De Luca?" He met her eyes, his expression unreadable. "Not to you. Never to you." It wasn't exactly an answer, but it was something. Clara filed it away. Another piece of the puzzle that was this complicated, compelling man. They spent the rest of the drive in comfortable silence. Clara's eyes drifted closed a few times, jerking open when the car hit a bump or made a sharp turn. Each time, she found Mateo watching her with an expression she couldn't quite decode. Concern, maybe. Or calculation, possibly both. When the car pulled up in front of her building, a 6-story walk-up that had seen better days, Mateo got out first and offered his hand. Clara let him help her to the sidewalk, very aware of how out of place the luxury car looked on her street. "Thank you," she said, meaning it. "For dinner, for the ride, for everything." "It was my pleasure." Mateo reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. "Can I have your number? I'd like to call you sometime. Continue our conversation." Clara hesitated. This was the moment where she could step back, create distance, protect herself. The smart thing would be to thank him politely and disappear into her building, never to see him again. Instead, she held out her hand for his phone and typed in her number. "I work crazy shifts. If I don't answer, it's not personal." "Understood." He saved the contact, then looked up at her building. "Which floor?" "4th. Why?" "No elevator?" "Broken. Has been for 3 months." Mateo's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "That's 4 flights of stairs when you're pregnant." "I'm pregnant, not disabled. I can handle stairs." "I'm not saying you can't. I'm saying you shouldn't have to. He pulled out his business card again, a different one this time. He wrote something on the back and handed it to her. This is my personal cell. Call me anytime, day or night. If you need anything at all, you call me. Clara took the card, turning it over to see the number written in neat, precise handwriting. You barely know me. I know enough. His eyes held hers, intense and serious. Promise me you'll call if you need help. Matteo. Promise me, Clara. The command in his voice should have annoyed her. Instead, it made her feel something she hadn't felt in months. Protected. Okay, I promise. Good. He stepped back, creating distance. Go inside, lock your door. Text me when you're safe. You're very bossy. Only when it matters. Clara smiled despite herself. Good night, Matteo. Good night, Clara. She turned and walked toward her building, fishing her keys from her purse. At the door, she looked back. Matteo stood exactly where she'd left him, watching, waiting. Behind him, the security detail maintained their vigilant positions. The whole scene looked like something from a movie. Powerful man in expensive suit, luxury car, armed guards. And somehow, she was part of it now. Clara waved. Matteo raised his hand in response. Then she pushed through the door and started the long climb to her apartment. By the third floor, her legs were shaking. By the fourth, she was breathing hard, one hand pressed to her lower back. Inside her apartment, she dropped her purse on the counter and immediately texted Matteo's number. Home safe. Thank you again for everything. His response came almost immediately. Sleep well. We'll talk soon. Clara set her phone down and looked around her tiny studio apartment. The Murphy bed was still pulled down from this morning, unmade. Dishes sat in the sink. Her scrubs from yesterday hung over the back of a chair, waiting to be washed. The whole place was maybe 400 square feet, and right now it felt suffocating. She walked to the window, looking out over Washington Heights. Somewhere out there, Matteo De Luca was being driven back to whatever life he led, the one with security details and expensive restaurants and secrets he kept carefully guarded. And somehow, impossibly, he'd decided he was interested in her. Clara pressed her hand to her stomach, feeling the small swell where her daughter grew. I have no idea what I'm doing, she whispered to the baby. But I guess we're doing it anyway. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Matteo. Sweet dreams, Clara. She smiled, typed back, you too, and headed for bed. As Clara finally collapsed onto her mattress, still in her scrubs because she was too tired to change, one thought circled through her exhausted mind. Her life had just gotten infinitely more complicated. She had absolutely no idea how right she was. Clara woke the next morning to 17 missed calls from Simone and a text that simply read, Call me now. She groaned, rolling over to check the time. 6:30. Her shift didn't start until 3, which meant she had a few precious hours to sleep in. But Simone's message had that urgent quality that couldn't be ignored. Clara hit the call button. Simone answered on the first ring. Please tell me that wasn't you at Lucia's last night. Good morning to you too. Clara, was that you having dinner with Matteo De Luca? Clara sat up, suddenly wide awake. How do you already know about that? Because my cousin's friend's sister works at Lucia's and she sent a photo to the family group chat at midnight, you and Matteo De Luca, at a corner table, looking very cozy. We weren't cozy. He helped me when my purse broke and then offered me dinner. That's all. That's all? Clara, do you have any idea who Matteo De Luca is? He owns the restaurant and some real estate company. Simone laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Oh, honey, he owns half of Manhattan. His family has been in New York for 3 generations. And the rumors about how they made their money, Clara's stomach tightened. What rumors? Nothing concrete, nothing anyone can prove. But the De Luca family didn't build an empire by playing nice. There are whispers about connections, about business deals that happen in back rooms, about people who crossed them and regretted it. That's just gossip. Maybe. But Clara, men like that don't just help random nurses out of kindness. What did he want? To get to know me. That's what he said. And you believed him? Clara thought about Matteo's dark eyes, the careful honesty in his voice when he'd admitted his interest. Yes, I did. Simone was quiet for a long moment. Be careful, please. I know you're lonely. I know the pregnancy has been hard, but men like Matteo De Luca are dangerous in ways you can't imagine. I'm not an idiot, Simone. I never said you were. I'm just saying, guard your heart and maybe your life. I'll see you at work tonight? Yeah, tonight. After they hung up, Clara lay back down, staring at the ceiling. Simone's warnings echoed in her head, mixing with her own doubts. What was she doing? She was a broke nurse about to be a single mother. Matteo was a wealthy businessman with security guards and secrets. They existed in different worlds. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Good morning. I hope you slept well. Clara smiled despite herself. She saved the contact under Matteo's name and typed back, better than I have in weeks. Thank you again for dinner. His response was immediate. My pleasure. Are you working today? Not until 3 p.m. Would you like to have lunch? There's a cafe near the hospital. Quiet, casual, no pressure. Clara's finger hovered over the keyboard. This was where she should say no, where she should create distance, protect herself. Instead, she typed, What time? Noon? I'll be there. She sent him the address when he asked, then immediately regretted it. What was she doing? But it was too late now. The message was sent. The plan was made. At 11:30, Clara stood in front of her tiny closet, frustrated. Everything she owned was either scrubs or worn-out casual clothes. Nothing appropriate for lunch with a man who probably had custom-tailored suits for every day of the week. Finally, she settled on her best pair of jeans and a navy blue sweater that at least fit her changing body well. She spent more time on her makeup than usual, told herself it was just because she had the time, and headed out. The cafe was 3 blocks from Mount Sinai, a small French place that Clara had walked past 100 times but never entered. Through the window, she could see Matteo already seated at a corner table, reading something on his phone. He wore a charcoal gray suit today, the jacket draped over the back of his chair, his white shirt rolled up to reveal forearms that were more muscular than she'd expected. Clara pushed through the door and Matteo looked up immediately. His face transformed when he saw her, the serious expression softening into something warmer. He stood as she approached. You came, he said, pulling out her chair. You sound surprised. I wasn't sure you would. He waited until she sat before returning to his own seat. I thought you might have second thoughts in the light of day. I did. Clara accepted the menu from a passing waiter. But I came anyway. Why? Honestly, I'm not sure. Curiosity, maybe, or stupidity. The jury's still out. Matteo laughed, and the sound made something warm bloom in Clara's chest. Well, I'm glad your curiosity won. Coffee? Or is that off limits right now? 1 cup a day is fine. I usually have it at work, but I can make an exception. He ordered them both coffee, then leaned back in his chair, studying her with that intense focus that made her feel like she was the only person in the room. How are you feeling today? Any lingering exhaustion? Some, but that's pretty standard these days. The second trimester is supposed to be easier, but nobody told my body that. Are you taking care of yourself? Eating enough? Resting when you can? Clara raised an eyebrow. You sound like a mother hen. I sound like someone who knows that nurses are terrible at following their own advice about self-care. Fair point. Clara accepted her coffee from the waiter with a grateful smile. But yes, I'm taking care of myself. Prenatal vitamins, regular checkups, the whole routine. And work? Are they accommodating the pregnancy? They're trying. But we're short-staffed, and I need the hours, so I take what I can get. Matteo's expression darkened slightly. You shouldn't have to choose between your health and paying rent. Welcome to American healthcare. Clara sipped her coffee, savoring the rich flavor. But it's fine. I'm managing. Managing isn't the same as thriving. No, but it's what I've got. She set down her cup, meeting his eyes steadily. Not all of us have family empires to fall back on. Instead of being offended, Matteo nodded slowly. You're right. I was born into advantages you weren't, but that doesn't mean I can't see when someone is struggling unnecessarily. I'm not a charity case, Matteo. I never said you were, but you are someone I care about, and... He stopped, seeming to catch himself. Sorry, too much too soon. Clara's heart was beating faster. You care about me. We've known each other for 12 hours. 13, actually, and yes, I care. Is that a problem? I don't know yet. She studied him across the table, trying to read the truth behind those dark eyes. My friend warned me about you this morning. Said your family has a dangerous reputation. Your friend is smart. So it's true? Some of it. The DeLuca family has been in New York business for a long time. We've made enemies. We've made difficult choices. But I'm not my father's generation, Clara. I'm trying to build something different. What does that mean? Matteo was quiet for a moment, seeming to choose his words carefully. It means I inherited a complicated legacy. Some parts of the business are exactly what they appear to be. Restaurants, real estate, legitimate holdings. Other parts, he paused. Other parts I'm working to phase out, to legitimize. That's still not a real answer. No, it's not. And I won't lie and say there's no darkness in my family's past. There is, but I'm trying to move us toward the light. Does that make sense? Clara wanted to push harder, to demand specifics, but something in his expression stopped her. There was honesty there, mixed with caution. He was telling her what he could without putting either of them at risk. Okay, she said finally, I appreciate you not lying to me. I promised I wouldn't. I meant it. The waiter returned to take their orders. Clara chose a quiche and salad. Matteo ordered the same, which made her smile. When they were alone again, he reached across the table, not quite touching her hand, but close enough that she could feel the warmth of his skin. Tell me about your daughter, he said. What are you hoping for her? The question caught Clara off guard. Most people asked about the pregnancy itself, the logistics, the fear. Nobody asked about her hopes. Everything, she admitted quietly. I want her to grow up feeling safe and loved. I want her to have opportunities I didn't. I want her to be brave and kind and strong. She will be. She has you for a mother. You don't know that. I know you walked 4 flights of stairs after a 16-hour shift. I know you're working yourself to exhaustion to provide for a child who isn't even born yet. I know you faced down a stranger in a restaurant and made your boundaries clear. That tells me everything I need to know about the kind of mother you'll be. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. Damn pregnancy hormones. You barely know me. I'm learning. His hand moved closer, fingertips brushing hers. Have you thought about names? A few, but nothing feels right yet. I keep thinking I'll know when I meet her. My mother said the same thing about my youngest sister. Had a list of 20 names, threw them all out when she was born and went with something completely different. What's your sister's name? Isabella. We call her Bella. His voice softened with obvious affection. She's 28 now, runs the restaurant operations. You'd like her. Would I get to meet her? Your family? Matteo hesitated. Eventually, maybe, but there are complications there. My father especially. Doesn't approve of nurses. Doesn't approve of anyone I show interest in. He has very specific ideas about who the family should associate with. And I don't fit those ideas. No one fits those ideas. He wants me to marry into another old New York family, create alliances, strengthen the business. He sees relationships as transactions. Clara pulled her hand back. And what do you see them as? As connections between people who choose each other, not business deals. Matteo leaned forward, his intensity ratcheting up. I don't care what my father thinks about who I spend time with. I stopped caring about that years ago. But it still causes problems. Yes, but they're my problems to handle, not yours. Their food arrived, and they ate in silence for a few minutes. Claire's mind was racing. Every answer Matteo gave raised 3 new questions. The more she learned about him, the more complicated the picture became. Can I ask you something? Clara said finally. Always. Why me? Really, you could have anyone. So why a broke pregnant nurse from Washington Heights? Matteo set down his fork, giving her his complete attention. Because when your purse broke and everyone in that restaurant was staring at you with pity or judgment, you didn't cry or run away. You got on your knees and started gathering your quarters like it was just another problem to solve. Because you worked 16-hour shifts growing a human being and still managed to stand up straight. Because you set boundaries with me even when I could tell you were exhausted and overwhelmed. You're strong, Clara, really strong, and that's rarer than you think. Strength born from not having any other choice isn't that impressive. Yes, it is. Because you had other choices. You could have given up, could have made different decisions, but you didn't. You keep fighting. He paused. And honestly, I'm tired of people who've never had to fight for anything. They're boring. Clara laughed despite herself. So I'm interesting because I'm struggling? You're interesting because you're still standing despite the struggling. There's a difference. They finished their lunch trading stories. Clara sharing tales from nursing school, Matteo talking about his work in the restaurant business. He was careful, she noticed, to keep things focused on the legitimate parts of his empire. The restaurants, the real estate development projects, the community investments. Nothing that ventured into the gray areas Simone had warned her about. But Clara was learning to read him. She saw the way he paused before answering certain questions, the careful selection of words, the topics he smoothly redirected away from. Matteo De Luca was a man with secrets. The question was whether she could live with that. When the check came, Matteo grabbed it before Clara could even reach for her purse. I can pay for my own lunch, she protested. I know you can. But I invited you, so I'm paying. It's not negotiable. Everything is negotiable. Not this. He handed his credit card to the waiter without even looking at the total. Save your money for things that matter, like baby furniture. The mention of baby furniture made Clara's stomach drop. She'd been avoiding thinking about that particular financial nightmare. A crib, a changing table, diapers, clothes. The list was endless and expensive. Matteo must have seen something in her expression because his voice gentled. Have you started getting things ready for the baby? Not really. I don't have space to store anything yet, and I'm trying to save money first. Where will you put the crib? In your studio? I'll figure it out. Maybe I can find a bigger apartment before she arrives. In 4 months in New York? Clara's jaw tightened. Like I said, I'll figure it out. I could help. No. The word came out sharper than she intended. I appreciate the offer, but no. I need to do this myself. Matteo raised his hands in surrender. Understood, but the offer stands if you change your mind. They left the cafe together, stepping out into the bright afternoon sun. Clara checked her phone. 12:40. She had just over 2 hours before her shift started. Enough time to go home, change into scrubs, maybe close her eyes for 20 minutes. Can I walk you to the hospital? Matteo asked. You don't have to do that. I know, but I'd like to, if that's okay. Clara nodded, and they started walking. Matteo matched his pace to hers, not rushing despite the fact that his legs were longer. One of his security guards followed at a discreet distance. Clara had spotted him inside the cafe, seated near the door. The constant protection was unsettling, a reminder of the life Matteo led when he wasn't having lunch with nurses. Can I ask you something personal? Clara said as they waited for a light to change. Haven't you been doing that all afternoon? More personal than usual. Go ahead. Do you ever get tired of it? The security, the caution, the weight of your family's reputation? Matteo was quiet for a long moment. They crossed the street, moving through the crowds of midday Manhattan, before he answered. Every day. But it's the life I was born into. I can't change my last name, can't erase the past. All I can do is try to build a different future. That sounds lonely. It is sometimes, which is why... He trailed off, then seemed to make a decision. Which is why finding someone who sees me as just a person, not as the De Luca heir or a business opportunity, matters more than you might think. Clara's heart clenched. Matteo, I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I'm just being honest, like I promised. They reached the hospital entrance too soon. Clara stopped, turning to face him. In the daylight, she could see details she'd missed the night before. The small scar above his left eyebrow, the fine lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled more than his serious demeanor let on, the precise way his hair was cut. Thank you for lunch, she said. I enjoyed it. Enough to do it again? Maybe, if you promise to let me pay next time. I'll consider it. His smile was genuine, reaching his eyes. Can I call you tonight, after your shift? It'll be late, after midnight probably. I don't sleep much anyway. Clara hesitated, then nodded. Okay, you can call. Be safe in there, he gestured to the hospital. And take care of yourself. Always do. She started to turn away, but Matteo caught her hand gently. Clara? Thank you. For what? for giving me a chance. I know it's not easy to trust someone new, especially given everything you're dealing with. You haven't given me a reason not to trust you yet. I hope I never do." He released her hand, and Clara walked into the hospital, feeling his eyes on her back until she turned the corner. Only then did she let herself fully process what was happening. In less than 24 hours, Matteo De Luca had entered her life and turned everything sideways. She barely knew him, and yet she found herself thinking about him constantly, looking forward to his calls, craving his attention. It was dangerous. It was potentially stupid. It was definitely complicated. And Clara was pretty sure she was already in too deep to stop it. Her shift passed in the usual chaos of the surgical floor, post-op patients, emergencies, the constant juggling of medications and care plans. But whenever she had a quiet moment, her mind drifted to Matteo, to the way he'd looked at her across the lunch table, to his questions about her hopes for her daughter, to the loneliness she'd heard in his voice when he talked about his life. Around 9 p.m., Clara was updating a chart when the charge nurse, Patricia, approached her with a strange expression. "Clara, can I see you for a minute?" "Sure. What's up?" Patricia led her to the small office behind the nurse's station and closed the door. "I got a call from administration this afternoon. About you." Clara's stomach dropped. "What kind of call?" "The good kind, actually. There's been a significant donation made to the hospital, anonymous donor, and it comes with a specific request that we create better accommodations for pregnant staff. Flex scheduling, a rest area, reassignment to less physically demanding floors when needed." That's amazing. It is. And you've been selected as one of the first staff members to benefit from it. Effective immediately, you're being reassigned to the private wing. Lighter patient load, more predictable hours, better pay. Claire's mind was racing. An anonymous donation, made specifically to help pregnant staff. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. Who made the donation? Like I said, it's anonymous. Administration won't say, but the amount was substantial enough that they're falling all over themselves to comply with the requests. Patricia leaned against the desk. "You don't seem as excited as I expected." "I am. It's just unexpected." "Good unexpected or suspicious unexpected?" Clara forced a smile. "Good. Definitely good. When do I start in the private wing?" "Tomorrow, if you want. They're assigning you to a long-term patient who needs monitoring but isn't critical. Easy work, good hours." "Okay, yes, thank you." After Patricia left, Clara stood alone in the office, her mind churning. It had to be Matteo, but she told him no charity, told him she needed to handle things herself. And he'd gone behind her back and done this anyway. She should be angry, should march out of here and call him and tell him to take his donation back. But the truth was, she was exhausted. Bone deep, soul tired, exhausted. And the thought of lighter shifts, better hours, more time to rest before the baby came, it was too tempting to refuse. Clara pulled out her phone and texted him. "Did you have anything to do with the donation to Mount Sinai?" His response came 30 seconds later. "We should probably have this conversation in person. Can I pick you up when your shift ends?" So it was him. Clara typed back, "Yes. We definitely need to talk. I'll be there at midnight." The rest of her shift dragged. Clara went through the motions, taking care of her patients, but her mind was elsewhere. By the time midnight rolled around, she'd worked herself into a complicated tangle of gratitude, frustration, and something that might have been hope. She changed out of her scrubs and headed downstairs. The same black car from last night waited at the curb. Matteo stood beside it, watching the hospital entrance. When he saw her, his expression turned wary. "You're angry," he said as she approached. "I'm confused. I told you I didn't want charity." "It's not charity. It's an investment in maternal health care. The entire surgical floor benefits, not just you." "But you did it for me." "Primarily, yes." He opened the car door. "Can we discuss this somewhere more private?" Clara hesitated, then nodded. She slid into the back seat, and Matteo joined her. The car pulled away from the hospital, heading uptown. "Where are we going?" Clara asked. "My apartment, unless you'd rather go somewhere else." "Your apartment is fine." They rode in tense silence. Clara stared out the window, watching the city pass by, trying to sort through her feelings. On one hand, Matteo had overstepped. had made a unilateral decision that affected her life without consulting her. On the other hand, he'd done it to help her, to make her pregnancy easier, safer. The car pulled up in front of a building in Midtown that was all glass and steel and obvious wealth. A doorman rushed to open the car door. Mateo helped Clara out and guided her inside with a hand at the small of her back. The lobby was marble and modern art. The elevator was silent and fast. They rode up to the top floor without speaking. When the doors opened, they stepped directly into Mateo's apartment. It was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, the lights of Manhattan spreading out in every direction. The furniture was elegant but comfortable, all clean lines and rich fabrics. Art hung on the walls, real art, the kind that belonged in museums. Everything spoke of wealth and taste, and a life Clara could barely imagine. "Can I get you something to drink?" Mateo asked, shrugging out of his jacket. "Water? Tea? Juice?" "Water is fine." Clara walked to the windows, pressing her hand against the cool glass. From up here, the city looked peaceful, almost gentle. "This view is incredible. It's why I bought the place." He returned with a glass of water, handing it to her. "Clara, I'm sorry. I should have asked you before making the donation." "Yes, you should have. But I knew you'd say no, and I knew you needed help, whether you'd admit it or not." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration clear in his movements. "You're working yourself to exhaustion, climbing 4 flights of stairs every day, taking 16-hour shifts when you should be resting. I had the means to change that, so I did. It wasn't your decision to make." "You're right, it wasn't. But I'd do it again." His eyes met hers, unflinching. "I know that makes me controlling. I know it crosses boundaries. But I can't watch you struggle when I have the power to help. I'm not your responsibility, Mateo. No, you're not. But you're someone I care about, and that makes your well-being matter to me. I can't turn that off just because it makes you uncomfortable." Clara set down her water glass. "This is too much, too fast. We've known each other for 1 day. 30 hours, actually. That's not funny. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to be honest." Mateo stepped closer but didn't touch her. "I know this is fast. I know it's intense. But I've learned not to waste time when something feels right. And this, you feel right. You don't know me well enough to make that determination. Then let me get to know you better. Accept the job transfer. Use the time it gives you to rest and prepare for your daughter. Let me take you to dinner occasionally. Let this develop naturally and see where it goes. And if it goes nowhere, then you'll still have better working conditions, and I'll have gained a friend. Either way, we both win." Clara wanted to argue, wanted to maintain her independence, her boundaries. But she was so tired. Tired of fighting alone, tired of pretending she had everything under control, tired of being strong every single second. "Okay," she heard herself say. "I'll take the job transfer, but I'm paying for my own dinners from now on." "Absolutely not. Mateo, I'll compromise on many things, Clara, but not on taking care of you. That's non-negotiable. You're impossible." "So I've been told." He smiled then, and the tension broke slightly. "Are you hungry? I can have something delivered." "I should probably go home. Or you could stay for a while. Talk. Watch the city. No pressure." Clara glanced at the windows, at the glittering lights spread out below. When was the last time she'd just sat and enjoyed a view? When was the last time she'd let herself relax? "Okay," she said quietly. "I'll stay for a little while." Mateo's smile was radiant. "Good. Make yourself comfortable. I'll order food." As he moved to the kitchen to call for delivery, Clara sank onto his couch, her body sighing in relief at the soft cushions. This was dangerous territory, getting comfortable in Mateo's world. But for tonight, just this one night, she let herself stop fighting. After all, even the strongest people needed to rest sometimes. The weeks that followed developed a rhythm that both terrified and comforted Clara. Her new position in the private wing was everything Patricia had promised: predictable hours, lighter patient loads, and an actual chair she could sit in when her back ached. She worked 3 12-hour shifts instead of the brutal doubles that had been destroying her body, and for the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe. Her primary patient was Alessandro De Luca. Clara had known something was off when she'd been given the assignment. A 72-year-old man recovering from heart surgery, stable but requiring monitoring. The name hadn't registered immediately. De Luca was common enough in New York. But when she'd walked into the private suite on her first day and seen Matteo standing beside the hospital bed, everything had clicked into place. "You've got to be kidding me," she'd said from the doorway. Matteo had turned, his expression carefully neutral. "Clara, I was hoping we'd have a chance to talk before your shift started." "This is your father?" "Yes." "The patient I've been assigned to is your father?" "Yes." Clara had looked at the man in the bed. Alessandro De Luca was pale but alert, his dark eyes, so similar to Matteo's, tracking the exchange with obvious interest. Even in a hospital gown, he radiated authority, the kind of man who commanded rooms and expected obedience. "I should request a different assignment," Clara had said. "Why?" Alessandro's voice was rough but strong. "Because my son knows you?" "Because it's a conflict of interest." "There's no conflict. You're a nurse. I'm a patient. Matteo's feelings are irrelevant to the medical care I require." He gestured to the chair beside his bed. "Sit. We should get to know each other if you're going to be poking and prodding me for the next few weeks." That had been 3 weeks ago. Since then, Clara had fallen into a strange routine. She'd arrive for her shift, check Alessandro's vitals, administer his medications, and somehow end up in long conversations about everything from New York politics to the best pizza in the city. The old man was sharp, observant, and far more perceptive than Clara was comfortable with. Matteo visited every day. Sometimes in the morning before Clara's shift started, sometimes in the evening when she was finishing up. They'd share coffee in the small kitchen area of the private wing, talking about everything and nothing. He asked about her pregnancy, her apartment hunt, her plans for the future. She asked about his work, his family, the parts of his life he was willing to share. What they didn't talk about was what they were becoming to each other. The way Clara found herself looking forward to seeing him. The way Matteo's face lit up when she entered a room. The careful way they didn't touch, as if both of them knew that crossing that line would change everything. It was Alessandro who finally called them out. Clara was checking his blood pressure one afternoon when he said, without preamble, "My son is falling in love with you." Her hands fumbled with the cuff. "Mr. De Luca." "Alessandro, we've been over this, and don't pretend you haven't noticed. Matteo looks at you like you're the only person in the world. It's nauseating, frankly." Clara focused on recording his numbers. "Your blood pressure is good, 120/78. You're avoiding the subject, because it's none of my business what Matteo feels. It's absolutely your business. The question is, what do you feel about him?" Clara met his eyes then, seeing the calculation there. Alessandro wasn't asking out of curiosity. He was assessing, measuring, determining if she was worthy of his son. "With respect, that's not something I'm going to discuss with you." "Why not? Too personal? Too complicated?" "Both. And because whatever is or isn't happening between Matteo and me has nothing to do with you." Alessandro's laugh was sharp. "Everything about my son has to do with me. I built the empire he'll inherit. I made the choices that shaped his life. You think you can waltz in and change the trajectory of the De Luca family?" "I'm not trying to change anything. I'm just trying to do my job." "Your job?" He settled back against his pillows, studying her. "And what about when this job ends? When I'm discharged and you have no reason to see Matteo every day? What then?" Clara had no answer for that. She'd been trying not to think about it, trying to exist in this suspended moment where she could see Matteo regularly without having to define what they were to each other. But Alessandro was right. Eventually this would end, and then she'd have to make a choice. "I don't know," she admitted quietly. "At least you're honest. That's something." Alessandro closed his eyes. "My son deserves someone strong, someone who won't be intimidated by our family or our reputation, someone who'll challenge him when he's being an idiot." "He has that in you, doesn't he?" "I won't be around forever. The heart surgery should have made that clear." His voice was matter-of-fact, no self-pity. "Matteo needs someone who sees him as a man, not just as the heir. Someone who fell for him before knowing what he was worth." Clara's throat tightened. "I should finish my rounds." "Run if you want. But you'll have to face this eventually." She left the room, her heart pounding. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall, trying to steady herself. Alessandro's words had cut too close to truths she'd been avoiding. She was falling for Matteo. Had been since that first night when he'd knelt on marble floors to help her gather her scattered life. But falling for him meant accepting everything that came with him: the wealth, the reputation, the dangerous legacy he was trying to escape. Clara? She looked up to find Matteo walking toward her, concern clear on his face. He was dressed for business today. Navy suit, crisp white shirt, no tie. He must have come straight from a meeting. Are you okay? You look pale. I'm fine, just tired. His hand came up to cup her face, the touch gentle and warm. It was the first time he'd touched her in weeks, and Clara felt it like electricity through her entire body. Don't lie to me. What happened? Your father happened. He's... She searched for the right word. Intense. That's one way to describe him. Matteo's thumb brushed across her cheekbone. What did he say? That you're falling in love with me. The words hung between them. Matteo didn't pull away, didn't deny it. His dark eyes searched hers, and Clara saw the truth there, raw and undeniable. And if I am? He asked quietly. Then we have a problem. Because I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be with someone like you. Someone like me. Someone powerful. Someone with secrets and security guards, and a father who looks at me like I'm a variable in some equation he's trying to solve. You're not a variable. You're a person I care about deeply. His other hand came up to frame her face. And yes, my life is complicated, but that doesn't change how I feel. How do you feel? Like I've been waiting for you without knowing it. Like every difficult choice I've made in my life led me to that restaurant 3 weeks ago. Like I want to know everything about you, what you dream about, what scares you, how you take your coffee in the morning. His voice dropped lower. Like I'm falling in love with you, and I can't stop it even if I wanted to. Clara's breath caught. Matteo, you don't have to say anything. I'm not asking for declarations. I just need you to know where I stand. Before Clara could respond, her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, grateful for the interruption, and saw a text from the building super. Water main break. Your apartment is flooded. Need you to come ASAP. No, she breathed. No, no, no. What's wrong? She showed him the message. Matteo's jaw tightened as he read it. Come on, I'll drive you. I'm still on shift. I'll clear it with administration. This is an emergency. 20 minutes later, Clara stood in the doorway of her studio apartment and wanted to cry. Water covered the floor, seeping into the baseboards, soaking into her mattress. The Murphy bed had been down, and now it was ruined. Her clothes, her books, everything she owned on the floor level was destroyed. Oh my God, she whispered. The super, a harried-looking man named Joe, wrung his hands. The pipe burst in the unit above you. We've shut off the water, but the damage... I'm so sorry, Clara. The building's insurance will cover it, but it'll take weeks to repair. Weeks? Where am I supposed to stay? There's a motel on Amsterdam Avenue. We can put you up there while... She'll stay with me, Matteo said firmly. Clara spun around. What? You'll stay at my apartment. I have plenty of space. Matteo, I can't... Yes, you can. You're pregnant, you need a safe place to sleep, and I have 4 empty bedrooms. It's not a negotiation. Everything is a negotiation. Not this, not your safety. He turned to Joe. Have her belongings dried and cleaned. Send the bill to my office. And make sure this unit is properly repaired before she moves back in. Joe nodded quickly, clearly recognizing someone who expected to be obeyed. Yes, sir. Of course. Clara wanted to argue, wanted to insist on the motel, on maintaining her independence. But she was 26 weeks pregnant, exhausted, and staring at her waterlogged life. The fight went out of her. Okay, she said quietly, just until the apartment is fixed. However long you need. Matteo's hand found the small of her back. Let's get what you can salvage and go. They spent an hour pulling out what could be saved, clothes that had been hung up, items from high shelves, her ultrasound photos thankfully protected in a drawer. It wasn't much. Most of her life was now part of the soggy mess on her floor. In the car heading to Matteo's apartment, Clara stared out the window, trying not to cry. Everything was falling apart. Her apartment, her carefully maintained independence, her ability to keep Matteo at arm's length. Hey, his hand covered hers. It's going to be okay. You don't know that. I do, because I'm going to make sure of it. You can't control everything, Mateo. No, but I can control this. I can give you a safe place to stay. I can make sure you and your daughter are taken care of. Let me do this, Clara, please. She looked at their joined hands, at the way his fingers laced through hers like they belonged there. What are we doing? Right now, we're going to my apartment. You're going to take a hot shower, eat something, and rest. Tomorrow we'll figure out the next steps. I mean, in general, what are we doing? This thing between us. Mateo was quiet for a long moment. We're taking it one day at a time. We're getting to know each other. We're seeing where this goes without forcing it into a definition that doesn't fit yet. Your father thinks you're falling in love with me. My father is right. And what am I supposed to do with that information? Whatever feels right to you. There's no timeline, no expectations, just possibility. Clara closed her eyes, leaning her head back against the seat. Possibility. It was a terrifying, wonderful word. They reached Mateo's building, and he helped her upstairs with her salvaged belongings. Inside his apartment, he led her to a guest room that was bigger than her entire studio had been. The bed was massive, covered in soft linens. The attached bathroom had a rainfall shower and a tub that could fit 2 people. This is too much, Clara said. It's a bedroom. Nothing more. Mateo set her bags down. Take your time settling in. I'll order dinner. Any preferences? I don't care. Surprise me. He smiled. Dangerous words. After he left, Clara sat on the edge of the bed, looking around at the luxury she'd somehow fallen into. 3 weeks ago, she'd been a nobody nurse dropping quarters on a restaurant floor. Now she was living in a penthouse apartment with a man who made her heart race every time he looked at her. Her phone rang. Simone. Please tell me the rumors about your apartment aren't true, Simone said without preamble. Depends on the rumor. If it's that my place is underwater, then yes, completely true. Where are you staying? Clara hesitated. With a friend. What friend? Clara Bennett, don't you dare tell me. I'm staying with Mateo. Temporarily. Just until my apartment is repaired. Simone's silence was damning. When she spoke again, her voice was tight. Do you hear yourself? You're living with a man you barely know. A dangerous man. He's not dangerous. How do you know that? Because he's charming? Because he buys you dinner? Clara, men like that are the most dangerous of all. They make you feel safe right up until you're in too deep to escape. I'm not trapped. I can leave whenever I want. Can you? Really? He's paying for your job transfer. He's giving you a place to live. He's inserting himself into every aspect of your life. That's not kindness, Clara. That's control. The words hit harder because Clara had thought them herself. I appreciate your concern, but I know what I'm doing. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you're falling for a man who could destroy you. Or he could be exactly what I need. And if you're wrong? Clara looked around the beautiful guest room, thought about Mateo's hands framing her face, his declaration that he was falling in love with her. Then I guess I'll deal with the consequences. I hope you know what you're doing. So do I. After Simone hung up, Clara sat in silence, her friend's warnings echoing in her head. Maybe she was being stupid. Maybe she was letting loneliness and pregnancy hormones cloud her judgment. But when she thought about walking away from Mateo, about going back to her solitary life, something in her chest ached. A knock on the door. Clara? Dinner's here. She found Mateo in the kitchen, unpacking containers of Thai food. The smell made her stomach growl. She hadn't realized how hungry she was. I got a variety, he said, gesturing to the spread. Pad Thai, green curry, spring rolls, mango sticky rice. I wasn't sure what you'd want. This is perfect. Clara sat at the kitchen island, watching as he plated food for both of them. There was something domestic about the scene that made her heart squeeze. Thank you for all of this. You don't have to keep thanking me. Yes, I do. You didn't have to help. You didn't have to offer your home. You chose to, and that means something. Mateo set a plate in front of her, his expression serious. Clara, I need you to understand something. Helping you isn't some burden I'm shouldering out of obligation. It's what I want to do. Taking care of you, making sure you're safe and comfortable. It matters to me. You matter to me. Why? We've only known each other 3 weeks. Time doesn't measure connection. I've known people for years who never meant a fraction of what you already mean to me. He sat beside her, close enough that their knees almost touched. And I know that terrifies you. I know you're used to doing everything alone, but you don't have to anymore. Not if you don't want to. Clara's eyes stung with sudden tears. Damn hormones. I don't know how to accept help. Then learn. With me. We'll figure it out together. They ate in comfortable silence, the city lights twinkling through the windows. Clara found herself relaxing despite everything, the combination of good food and Mateo's steady presence soothing her frayed nerves. Can I ask you something? She said eventually. Always. Your father, what did he say about me? Before today, I mean. Mateo's expression became guarded. What makes you think he said anything? Because he's your father, and I'm a pregnant nurse from Washington Heights who's somehow ended up in his son's life. I can't imagine he's thrilled. My father's opinions are complicated. He respects strength, and he sees that in you. But he also has certain expectations about who I should be with. Someone from an old New York family, someone who comes with business connections and social standing. Yes, but I stopped living my life according to his expectations a long time ago. Mateo's hand covered hers on the counter. My father will come around, and if he doesn't, that's his problem, not ours. Is there an ours? I hope so, but only if you want there to be. Before Clara could answer, her phone rang again. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her answer. Hello? Clara Bennett? The voice was male, unfamiliar, with a slight accent. Yes. Who is this? A friend. I wanted to give you some advice about Matteo DeLuca. Matteo tensed beside her, clearly hearing the conversation. He reached for the phone, but Clara held up a hand. What advice? She asked. Walk away. Now, while you still can. The DeLuca family isn't what they pretend to be. They're dangerous, and anyone who gets close to them gets hurt. Ask yourself why a man like Matteo would want someone like you. What does he really want? Clara's hand tightened around the phone. I don't know who you are, but I'm someone who's seen what the DeLucas do to people. I'm trying to save you from making a terrible mistake. The line went dead. Clara set down the phone, her heart racing. Matteo's face had gone hard, his eyes dark with something that looked like fury. What did they say? His voice was controlled, but she heard the anger underneath. That I should walk away from you. That your family is dangerous. She met his eyes. Matteo, who was that? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. He pulled out his own phone, typing rapidly. This is exactly why I have security. There are people who would use you to get to me. Use me how? To gain leverage, to send a message, to hurt me by hurting someone I care about. He looked up from his phone, his expression intense. Clara, I need you to take this seriously. From now on, you don't go anywhere alone. You let my driver take you to work. You stay here where security is tight. You're scaring me. Good. You should be scared, because whoever made that call knows about us, knows where to find you, and thought threatening you would accomplish something. Clara stood, backing away from the counter. This is insane. I can't live like this. You don't have a choice. Not anymore. Matteo stood too, moving toward her. The moment people saw us together, the moment I made it clear you mattered to me, you became a target. I'm sorry. I should have warned you, should have been more careful, but we can't undo it now. So what? I'm just supposed to accept that my life is in danger because I had dinner with you? Yes, and I'm supposed to make sure nothing happens to you because of it. Clara felt panic rising in her chest. This was too much. The flooded apartment, the move to Matteo's place, the phone call. It was all crashing down on her at once. I need air. I need to think. You can't leave. I'm not leaving. I'm going to stand by the window and breathe. Is that allowed? Matteo's jaw clenched, but he nodded. Clara walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows, pressing her forehead against the cool glass. Below, the city sprawled in all directions, millions of people living their normal, uncomplicated lives. And here she was, trapped in a penthouse with a man she was falling for, being told she was in danger from enemies she didn't know existed. She felt Matteo approach before she saw him. He stood behind her, close but not touching. I'm sorry, he said quietly. This isn't what I wanted for you. What did you want? To take things slow. To let you get to know me without the weight of my family's baggage. To make you fall for me because of who I am, not what I can provide. His voice was rough with emotion. I wanted to deserve you before asking you to accept all of this. Clara turned to face him. You think you don't deserve me? I know I don't. You're good, Clara. Genuinely good. You spend your life helping people, caring for them, making their pain easier. What do? I manage properties and restaurants built on money my father earned through methods I don't fully understand. I have enemies because of choices I didn't make. I come with danger and complications, and a last name that means something dark in this city. You also knelt on a marble floor to help a stranger. You make sure pregnant women have better working conditions. You visit your father every single day, even though I can tell the relationship is complicated. You're trying to build something legitimate out of a legacy you didn't choose. Clara stepped closer. You're not your family's past, Mateo. You're what comes next. And that person might just deserve me. Something broke in his expression. Before Clara could process it, his hands were in her hair, his forehead pressed against hers. I'm falling in love with you. I know it's too soon, I know it's complicated, but I can't help it. You're everything I didn't know I needed. Mateo, you don't have to say it back. I just need you to know. Whatever happens, whatever threats come, whatever my father says, I'm choosing you, if you'll let me. Clara's hands came up to grip his wrists, holding him in place. Her heart was pounding, her mind racing, but underneath it all was a certainty she couldn't deny. She was falling too, had been since he'd handed her those quarters and looked at her like she mattered. I'm terrified, she whispered. Me too. This could go so wrong. I know. We barely know each other. We're learning. Clara pulled back enough to see his face, to look into those dark eyes that had haunted her for weeks. If I do this, if I stay, if I let this happen, I need you to promise me something. Anything. No more secrets, no more carefully worded half-truths. If I ask you a question, you answer honestly, even if the truth is ugly. Mateo hesitated, and Clara saw the war in his expression, the desire to protect her versus the need to be honest. Finally, he nodded. Okay, no more secrets. But Clara, some truths are going to be hard to hear. I'd rather have hard truths than comfortable lies. Then you'll have them. I promise. They stood there, foreheads pressed together, breathing the same air. The city sparkled around them, indifferent to the choice being made in this moment. Clara knew this was a turning point. If she stepped back now, she could still walk away relatively unscathed. But if she moved forward, if she let herself fully fall for Mateo De Luca, there would be no going back. She thought about her daughter growing inside her. What kind of example did she want to set? Running from fear or choosing love even when it was complicated? Clara made her choice. She closed the distance between them and kissed him. Mateo froze for half a second, then responded with an intensity that stole her breath. His hands tightened in her hair, pulling her closer. Her hands slid up his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath her palms. The kiss was everything, promise and passion and possibility all tangled together. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Mateo's eyes were nearly black with emotion. Stay, he breathed. Not just tonight. Not just until your apartment is fixed. Stay with me. Let me protect you. Let me care for you and your daughter. Let me be what you need. Clara should have said no, should have maintained boundaries, protected herself. Instead, she heard herself say, Okay. Okay? I'll stay. We'll figure this out, together. Mateo kissed her again, slower this time, sweeter. And Clara let herself fall, finally stopping the fight against the inevitable. She had no idea that the real danger was just beginning. The first week of living with Mateo passed in a blur of adjustment and discovery. Clara learned that he woke at 5:30 every morning to work out in the building's gym, that he took his coffee black with exactly 1 sugar, that he had a habit of reading late into the night when he couldn't sleep. She learned that despite his controlled exterior, he laughed easily at her stories from the hospital, that he was protective to the point of being overbearing, and that he looked at her daughter's ultrasound photos with a reverence that made her chest ache. Mateo learned that Clara talked to her unborn daughter constantly, narrating her day and making promises about the future. He learned that she cried at commercial for baby products, that she had nightmares about being a bad mother, and that she fiercely guarded her independence even while accepting his help. He learned that when she was stressed, she organized things, and that she'd reorganized his kitchen cabinets 3 times in 5 days. They were learning each other, mapping the contours of a relationship neither of them had planned for. But the threat from the phone call lingered. Mateo had increased security, assigned Clara a permanent driver, and insisted she text him every time she arrived somewhere safely. She'd bristled at first, but the tight set of his jaw when he talked about potential danger convinced her to comply. On the 8th day, everything changed. Clara was supposed to work a half shift at the hospital, finishing at 6. Mateo had a business dinner he couldn't cancel, but he'd arranged for his driver to pick her up and bring her back to the apartment. Simple. Safe. Routine. Except the driver didn't show. Clara waited outside the hospital for 20 minutes, texting the driver with no response. She called Mateo, but his phone went straight to voicemail. He was probably in the middle of his dinner meeting. She considered taking the subway, but the memory of his intensity when discussing her safety stopped her. Instead, she called a car service, figuring Mateo would understand the compromise. The car that pulled up was black and professional looking. The driver confirmed her name. Clara slid into the back seat, exhausted from her shift and ready to get home. She texted Mateo. Driver was a no-show. Took a car service instead. See you soon. She didn't notice when the car turned the wrong direction until they'd been driving for 10 minutes. Excuse me, Clara leaned forward. This isn't the way to Midtown. The driver didn't respond. The locks clicked, all 4 doors engaging simultaneously. Clara's heart started to pound. Stop the car, let me out. Can't do that, Miss Bennett. Got orders. From who? Stop this car right now or I'm calling the police. She reached for her phone, but the driver was faster. He pulled over abruptly, and before Clara could process what was happening, the back door opened. A man slid in beside her, tall, muscular, with cold eyes that assessed her clinically. Phone, he said, holding out his hand. No, let me out of this car. The man sighed, then moved with brutal efficiency. He grabbed her wrist, twisted until she gasped in pain, and took the phone from her other hand. We can do this easy or hard, Miss Bennett. Your choice. Clara's mind raced. She was pregnant, trapped in a car with 2 men, and no one knew where she was. Mateo wouldn't get her text. They had her phone. Panic clawed at her throat, but she forced it down. Panic wouldn't help her daughter. What do you want? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Not me. My employer. He wants to send a message to Mateo DeLuca. I have nothing to do with Mateo's business. You have everything to do with it. You're his weakness, and weaknesses get exploited. The car started moving again. Clara looked out the window, trying to memorize landmarks, street signs, anything that might help. They were heading toward the waterfront, away from the city center, away from people who might help. Where are you taking me? Somewhere quiet, somewhere we can wait for Mr. DeLuca to get our message. Clara's hand moved to her stomach, a protective gesture she couldn't control. The man noticed and smiled, a cold expression that made her skin crawl. Don't worry, boss said not to hurt you. You're worth more intact. He pulled out her phone, scrolling through it. Let's see. Last text to Mateo says you took a car service. He'll think you're safe at home until he arrives and finds you missing. That gives us a few hours. He'll find me. Probably. That's the point. But first, he'll sweat. He'll imagine all the things we could be doing to you. He'll understand what it feels like to lose something that matters. Who are you? What does Mateo have that you want? Territory, respect. What his family took from ours 3 decades ago. The man leaned back, getting comfortable. The DeLucas think they own this city. Time to remind them they don't. The car drove for another 30 minutes. Clara tried to stay calm, tried to think of ways to escape. But she was one pregnant woman against 2 armed men. She'd seen the gun on the driver's hip when he turned. Fighting would only get her hurt, possibly killed. Her daughter kicked, a flutter of movement that reminded Clara she wasn't just protecting herself. So she waited, watched, planned. They pulled up to a warehouse near the water, isolated and dark. The man grabbed her arm, not gentle, but not violent either, and led her inside. The space was cavernous, filled with shipping containers and industrial equipment. In the center, someone had set up a single chair and a camera on a tripod. Sit, the man ordered. Clara sat, her mind still racing. The camera meant they planned to record something, probably to send to Mateo. A ransom demand? A threat? Whatever it was, it meant they needed her alive and relatively unharmed. That was something. The man positioned the camera, checking the angle. "Comfortable, Miss Bennett?" "What do you think?" "I think you're tougher than you look. Mateo chose well." "Don't talk about him like you know him." "But I do know him. Known the DeLuca family my whole life. Watched them build their empire on other people's backs. Watched them crush anyone who stood in their way." He pressed record on the camera. Now it's their turn to hurt. He moved to stand beside Clara, pulling out a knife. She flinched, and he laughed. "Relax. This is just for show." He held the knife near her face, close enough to be visible on camera, but not touching. Clara forced herself to stay still, to not give him the satisfaction of seeing her fear. "Mateo," the man said, addressing the camera. "By now you've realized your pretty nurse is missing. We have her. She's alive, unharmed, and will stay that way as long as you cooperate. You have 24 hours to withdraw from the Harborside Development Project. Transfer your stake to the Rossini family. Do that, and you get her back. Refuse, and..." He let the knife trail down Clara's cheek without touching skin. "Well, let's not find out what happens then." He stopped the recording, satisfied. "There, simple message, clear terms. Now we wait." Clara's hands were shaking, but she kept her voice level. "Mateo won't negotiate with you. That's not who he is." "We'll see. A man in love does stupid things." The hours that followed were the longest of Clara's life. The men didn't hurt her, but they didn't make her comfortable either. They gave her water when she asked, let her use a grimy bathroom in the corner of the warehouse. But mostly, they ignored her. The driver played on his phone while the other man made calls in Italian, coordinating something Clara couldn't fully understand. She thought about Mateo constantly, about how he'd feel when he came home to an empty apartment, about the panic that would set in when he couldn't reach her, about the choices he'd have to make, his business interests or her safety. Clara knew which one he'd choose, and that terrified her. Around midnight, everything changed. The warehouse lights cut out suddenly, plunging everything into darkness. Clara heard the men curse, scrambling for weapons. Then came sounds from outside, car doors, footsteps, the unmistakable click of guns being readied. "We've got company," the driver hissed. "Impossible. No one knows we're here." "Tell that to whoever's outside." A voice echoed through the warehouse, amplified somehow. Mateo's voice, and it was absolutely lethal. "You have 10 seconds to send Clara Bennett out unharmed. After that, I come in, and I promise you, you don't want that." The man who'd orchestrated the kidnapping grabbed Clara, pulling her up and pressing his knife to her throat. "Stay back, DeLuca. Come any closer and she dies. If you hurt her, there's nowhere on earth you can hide from me." Mateo's voice was cold, controlled, and more frightening than any threat Clara had ever heard. "I will burn your family's legacy to the ground. I will destroy everyone you've ever cared about. I will make you beg for death before I grant it. 10 seconds. 9, 8. I'm not bluffing. Neither am I. 7, 6. Clara felt the knife shake against her throat. The man was scared, she realized, truly scared of what Mateo would do. 5, 4. Okay. The man lowered the knife. "We're sending her out. Nobody move." He pushed Clara forward, and she stumbled toward the warehouse entrance. The door was already open, light streaming in from spotlights outside. As her eyes adjusted, she saw what the men inside couldn't fully appreciate yet. Mateo hadn't come alone. At least a dozen men flanked him, all armed, all looking deadly serious. But Clara only saw Mateo. He stood in the center, dressed in the suit from his dinner meeting, but with his jacket gone and his shirt sleeves rolled up. Blood stained his knuckles. Whose, Clara didn't want to know. His face was a mask of controlled fury, his eyes scanning her frantically. "Clara!" Her name was a prayer and a curse. He moved toward her, and she ran the last few steps, crashing into him. His arms came around her tight and secure, and Clara felt herself start to shake. "I've got you," he murmured against her hair. "You're safe. I've got you." Behind them, his men moved into the warehouse. Clara heard shouting, sounds of a scuffle, but Mateo turned her away from it, shielding her with his body. "Don't look. Just hold on to me." "How did you find me?" Your phone had location tracking. The moment I saw your text and realized something was wrong, I activated it. His hands moved over her, checking for injuries. Did they hurt you? The baby? No, they didn't touch me, just scared me. I'm going to kill them for that. Clara pulled back enough to see his face. The fury there was terrifying and beautiful. This was the dangerous side of Matteo she'd heard about but never fully seen. This was the man who'd inherited a legacy of violence and power. Don't, she said quietly. Don't become what they are because of me. They took you, they threatened you, and are... He stopped, seeming to catch himself. They threatened you. That demands consequences. Then let the police handle it. The police can't touch the Rossini family. They're too connected, too careful. But you can. Yes, I can. He cupped her face, his expression softening slightly. Clara, I need you to understand something. What happened tonight? This is my world. This is what I've been trying to protect you from. People who would hurt you to get to me, and it's only going to get worse. So what are you saying? I'm saying you have a choice. You can walk away from this, from me. I'll make sure you're protected, make sure you have everything you need. But you won't be part of my life anymore. You'll be safe from this. Clara looked at him, really looked at him, at the blood on his hands that he'd shed to find her, at the fear barely controlled beneath his fury, at the love shining in his eyes despite everything. Or, she asked, or you stay. You accept that this is part of loving me. You let me protect you, let my security become your security. You trust me to handle threats like this and keep you safe. His hands were shaking against her face. But Clara, I can't promise nothing will ever happen again. I can't promise there won't be more danger. All I can promise is that I will move heaven and earth to keep you safe. Clara thought about the warehouse, the knife at her throat, the terror of not knowing if she'd see morning. She thought about her daughter, who deserved a mother who made smart choices. She thought about walking away, going back to her simple life where the biggest danger was a difficult patient or a broken elevator. Then she thought about never seeing Matteo again, never hearing his laugh or feeling his arms around her, never watching him read pregnancy books late at night or seeing the way his face lit up when she entered a room. I'm not leaving, she said firmly. Clara, I'm not leaving you. I'm terrified, and I'm angry that this happened, and we're going to have a very long conversation about security measures. But I'm not walking away. You should. You should run as far from me as possible. Probably, but I'm not going to. She pressed her hand to his chest, feeling his heart racing. You found me, Matteo. In less than 3 hours, you tracked me down and got me out. That tells me everything I need to know about how far you'll go to protect me. I would have burned the city down to find you. I know, and that should terrify me. But instead it makes me feel safe because I know you'll never let anything happen to me or our daughter if you can prevent it. Matteo went very still. Our daughter? Clara realized what she'd said, what she'd implied. Her hand moved to her stomach. I mean, if you want, I'm not assuming. Say it again. Our daughter. Matteo kissed her then, deep and claiming and full of promise. When they broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. I love you. I'm in love with you. And I want to be there for every moment of this pregnancy, every milestone of her life. I want to be her father in every way that matters. Claire's eyes filled with tears. She's not yours biologically. I don't care. She's yours, which means she's mine. If you'll let me. Yes. Yes, I'll let you. Behind them, Matteo's men emerged from the warehouse, the kidnappers in custody. One of the men approached carefully. Boss? What do you want us to do with them? Matteo's expression hardened. He looked at Clara, then back at his man. Call Detective Morrison. Tell him we're handing over 3 men involved in a kidnapping. Let the law handle it. You sure? After what they did? I'm sure. We're done with that way of handling things. From now on, we do this the right way. He pulled Clara closer. We have too much to lose now. The man nodded and walked away. Clara sagged against Matteo, exhaustion crashing over her. Can we go home now? Yes, let's go home. He led her to his car, helping her into the back seat before sliding in beside her. As they pulled away from the warehouse, Clara watched the scene recede in the mirrors, police cars arriving, the kidnappers being loaded into vehicles, the evidence of Matteo's power and reach on full display. How did you know? She asked quietly. How did you know something was wrong so quickly? Because I know you. You would have called if the driver didn't show, not just texted, and the wording was off. You said, "See you soon," but you always say, "See you later." Small things, but they added up. His arm tightened around her. I've been studying you, Clara, learning everything about you, so when something feels wrong, I notice. That should probably creep me out. But it doesn't? No. It makes me feel seen. Like I matter enough for you to pay attention. You matter more than anything. They rode the rest of the way in silence. When they reached Mateo's building, he carried Clara to the elevator despite her protests, not setting her down until they were inside the apartment. Then he led her to the bathroom and started running a bath. You don't have to. Let me take care of you, please. Clara nodded, too tired to argue. She let him help her undress, let him guide her into the warm water. He knelt beside the tub, washing her hair with gentle hands, rinsing away the fear and grime of the warehouse. I was so scared, Clara admitted quietly. Not for me, but for her, for our daughter. What if something had happened to her because of me? Nothing happened. You're both safe. This time. But what about next time? There won't be a next time. I'm implementing new security protocols. You'll have a dedicated security team, not just a driver. The apartment will have additional measures. And I'm making it very clear to every family in this city that you're under my protection. Won't that just paint a bigger target on my back? No. It'll make you too costly to touch. The Rossinis grabbed you because they thought they could get away with it. After tonight, everyone will know that touching you means war with the DeLuca family, and no one wants that war. Clara closed her eyes, letting his words sink in. This was her life now. Security details and territorial warnings and the weight of a powerful name. She'd chosen it, chosen him. But the reality was still overwhelming. Mateo? Yes? What did you mean earlier when you said it's only going to get worse? His hands paused in her hair. My father is retiring. He's been planning it for months, but tonight accelerated the timeline. He's officially naming me head of the DeLuca family next week. What does that mean? It means I'll control all family business. All decisions will go through me. I'll be responsible for every operation, every alliance, every enemy we have. He resumed washing her hair, his touch still gentle. It means I'll have more power, but also more responsibility. More people will challenge me, test me, try to find weaknesses. And I'm a weakness. You're my strength. But yes, people will see you as leverage, which is why the security is necessary. Clara opened her eyes, looking at him. Are you sure you want this? A pregnant girlfriend who comes with complications? I'm sure I want you. Everything else is just logistics. He helped her out of the tub, wrapping her in a towel. Clara, I know this isn't the life you planned, but it's the life we can build together. You, me, and our daughter. Our daughter, Clara repeated softly. I like the sound of that. So do I. He carried her to bed, tucking her under the covers. Clara expected him to leave, to give her space, but instead he climbed in beside her, pulling her against his chest. Sleep, he murmured. I'll keep watch. You need to sleep too. I will, eventually. Right now I need to hold you and know you're safe. Clara burrowed into his warmth, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her ear. Despite everything that had happened, she felt safe here, protected, loved. Mateo? Thank you for finding me, for coming for me. Always. No matter what, I will always come for you. She believed him, and as she drifted off to sleep, Clara made a decision. She was done being afraid, done letting other people's violence dictate her choices. If she was going to be with Mateo, if she was going to let him be a father to her daughter, then she needed to fully embrace what that meant. She needed to become strong enough to stand beside him, not behind him, not hidden away, but beside him as an equal partner. Tomorrow she'd start asking the questions she'd been avoiding, about his business, his family, the parts of his life he'd kept carefully hidden. Tomorrow, she'd demand full transparency, the complete truth about what being with Mateo DeLuca really meant. But tonight, she'd rest in his arms and let herself be grateful for the fierce, complicated, dangerous man who'd moved heaven and earth to bring her home. Clara woke to find Mateo exactly where he'd been when she fell asleep, wrapped around her, his breathing deep and steady against her neck. Dawn light filtered through the windows, painting the bedroom in soft gold. For a moment, she let herself just exist in this peace, knowing the conversations ahead would be anything but peaceful. She shifted slightly, and Mateo's arms tightened reflexively before his eyes opened. The fear that flashed across his face when he didn't immediately see her made Clara's chest ache. "I'm here," she whispered. "I'm right here." His hand moved to her face, tracing her features like he needed to confirm she was real. "How are you feeling?" "Sore, tired, but okay." She caught his hand, pressing a kiss to his bruised knuckles. "We need to talk." "I know. Really talk. No more carefully edited truths. I need to understand everything." Mateo was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, but not here. Come with me." He led her to his study, a room Clara had never entered before. The walls were lined with books, the desk massive and imposing. He gestured to a leather couch, then moved to a safe hidden behind a painting. From it, he pulled a thick folder. "This is everything," he said, settling beside her. "Financial records, business holdings, the complete truth about what my family built and what I'm trying to transform it into." Clara took the folder, opening it with trembling hands. The first pages were property deeds, restaurants, apartment buildings, warehouses, legitimate businesses. But as she flipped deeper, the picture became more complicated. Shell corporations, offshore accounts, partnerships with names she recognized from news reports about organized crime. "Your father," she said slowly, "he wasn't just a businessman. No, he ran what people would call a crime family. Protection rackets, gambling operations, controlled labor unions. Nothing violent like drugs or trafficking. He had lines he wouldn't cross. But yes, the foundation of DeLuca wealth came from illegal activities. And you?" "I inherited it all 5 years ago when my father had his first heart attack. He stayed on as advisor, but I've been running things. And I've been systematically dismantling the illegal operations, converting everything to legitimate business." He pointed to a page near the back. "This is the last piece. The harborside development the Rossinis wanted. It's built on waterfront property my father acquired through intimidation 30 years ago. I've spent 2 years negotiating with the original owner's descendants, making restitution, turning it into a legitimate deal." Clara studied the document, seeing the careful paper trail of transformation. "This is what you meant by building something different." "Yes. It's why some of the old families hate me. They see it as betraying the way things have always been done. But I'm tired of building empire on fear. I want something clean, something I can be proud of." "Does your father approve?" Mateo laughed bitterly. "He thinks I'm naive, soft. He agreed to retire because his health is failing, but he's made it clear he thinks I'm destroying everything he built. Are you?" "I'm destroying the parts that should never have existed, the parts that hurt innocent people." He took her hand. "Clara, I can't erase the past, can't undo the things my family did, but I can make sure the future is different. That's what I'm trying to do." Clara set down the folder, processing everything. This was bigger than she'd imagined, more complicated. Mateo wasn't just a wealthy businessman. He was actively trying to dismantle a criminal empire from the inside while fighting enemies who wanted to preserve it. "The kidnapping," she said. "That was about the Harborside project?" "Yes. The Rossinis wanted me to hand over my stake, essentially giving them control of prime waterfront property. When I refused, they went after you." His jaw clenched. "They made a critical mistake. They thought I'd choose business over you. They were wrong. What happens now? Now I make sure everyone knows that touching you means declaring war on the entire DeLuca family. The Rossinis are finished in this city. I've already started dismantling their operations. Others will think twice before making the same mistake." "By doing what? Going back to the old ways?" "No, by using the law. I have enough documentation on their illegal activities to bury them for decades. I'm handing it all to the DA this afternoon." He squeezed her hand. "I meant what I said last night. We're done with violence, done with operating in the shadows. From now on, everything we do is legal, above board, clean." Clara searched his face, looking for deception and finding only determination. "That's going to make you enemies." "I already have enemies. At least this way I can sleep at night." "What about your family? Your siblings? Your father? Will they support this?" "My sisters already do. Isabella has been pushing for legitimization for years. My brother Marco is still on the fence, but he'll come around. As for my father, Matteo shrugged. He'll accept it or he won't. Either way, it's happening. A knock on the study door interrupted them. Alessandro's voice came through, strong despite his recent surgery. Matteo, I know you're in there. We need to talk. Matteo and Clara exchanged glances. Come in, Papa. Alessandro entered, leaning on a cane but moving steadily. His eyes went immediately to Clara, assessing her with that sharp intelligence she'd come to recognize. Miss Bennet, I heard about last night. Are you unharmed? Yes, sir. Thank you. Good. Because we have a serious problem. He settled into a chair across from them, his expression grave. The Rossini's grab was sloppy, desperate, but it exposed a vulnerability we can't ignore. As long as Clara is just your girlfriend, just someone you're involved with, she's a target. People will always see her as leverage. I'm handling the security. Security isn't enough. You need to make a statement. A declaration that she's not just some woman you're sleeping with. She's family, untouchable. Clara felt her stomach drop. She knew where this was going. Matteo's hand tightened on hers. What are you suggesting? You know exactly what I'm suggesting. Marry her. Make her a DeLuca in every legal and social sense. Then touching her isn't just an attack on your girlfriend, it's an attack on the family itself. The consequences become exponentially worse. Papa, we've been together for less than 2 months, and you're already calling her baby yours. You've already moved her into your home. You've already made it clear she matters more than business deals. Stop pretending this is casual, Matteo. You love her, so make it official. Clara found her voice. Mr. DeLuca, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but marriage for security reasons is not just security, strategy, protection, and from what I can see, genuine affection. Alessandro's eyes softened slightly. My son has never looked at anyone the way he looks at you. I've watched him with women who came from the right families, had the right connections, and he was always dutiful, polite. With you, he's alive. That matters. Even though I come with nothing, no family, no connections, no dowry, Clara couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. You come with strength, integrity, the courage to stand up to my son when he's being an idiot. That's worth more than any society connection. Alessandro stood, leaning on his cane. I'll leave you two to discuss it. But Matteo, think carefully. The formal announcement of your leadership is in 4 days. If you're going to do this, do it before then. Make it clear from day one that she's protected. After he left, Clara and Matteo sat in silence. Finally, Clara spoke. He's not wrong about the security implications. No, he's not. But Clara, I won't trap you into marriage because of danger. That's not fair to you. What if I said yes anyway? Matteo's head snapped up. What? Clara took a breath, organizing her thoughts. I've been thinking about this all night, about what it means to really be with you, and I realized something. I'm already all in. I'm living in your home, falling in love with you, letting you be a father to my daughter. We're already building a life together. The only question is whether we formalize it. Marriage is more than formalization. It's a promise, a commitment. I know, and I'm ready to make that commitment if you are. Clara, you don't have to do this because of what happened. She pressed her fingers to his lips, silencing him. I'm not doing this because of the kidnapping. I'm doing this because when I was in that warehouse, terrified and alone, the only thing that kept me calm was knowing you'd come for me. Because I trust you with my life and my daughter's life. Because I love you, Matteo. Completely. Terrifyingly. And I want to build this life with you officially. Matteo's eyes glistened. You love me? I love you. I'm in love with you. And yes, the timing is insane and the circumstances are complicated, but I don't care. I want this. He kissed her then, deep and claiming. When they broke apart, he was smiling, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. I don't have a ring. I don't need one right now. You'll have one, the best I can find. He pulled her closer. Clara Bennet, will you marry me? Will you let me be your husband and your daughter's father? Will you build this empire of legitimate business and genuine love with me? Yes. To all of it, yes. They sat there, holding each other as the morning sun climbed higher. Outside the study, life continued. Security details coordinating, businesses operating, the city moving through its rhythms. But in this moment, Clara felt something shift. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about choosing love despite danger, about building something beautiful out of complicated circumstances. "We should tell your family," Clara said eventually, "before your father announces it to everyone in Manhattan." Matteo laughed. "Too late. He's probably already on the phone with my mother." He was right. By the time they emerged from the study, Matteo's phone was flooded with messages from his siblings. Isabella had sent 17 texts, the last one reading, "About time. I'm planning the wedding. No arguments." "Your sister is intense," Clara observed. "You have no idea. She once planned a restaurant opening in 72 hours when our contractor bailed. A wedding will be her masterpiece." "Should I be worried?" "Terrified. But she'll make it beautiful." Over the next few days, Clara's life transformed at dizzying speed. Isabella descended on the apartment like a force of nature, bringing fabric swatches and venue options and a determination to create the perfect wedding in under 2 weeks. Matteo's mother, Elena, arrived from her home in Connecticut, a small, elegant woman who took one look at Clara and pulled her into a fierce hug. "Thank you," Elena whispered. "Thank you for bringing my son back to life." Marco, Matteo's brother, was more reserved, but Clara caught him watching her with something like approval when she stood up to Isabella about the floral arrangements. The youngest sister, Lucia, simply declared Clara her new favorite person and proceeded to share every embarrassing Matteo story from their childhood. Through it all, Matteo stayed close. He attended dress fittings, weighed in on menu choices, and kept one hand on Clara's back whenever they were in public. The message was clear. She was his, and he was claiming her for everyone to see. 3 days before the wedding, Alessandro was released from the hospital. Clara was there for his final checkup, and he pulled her aside as Matteo handled discharge paperwork. "You're good for him," Alessandro said without preamble. "Better than I expected. High praise from you, I think. Don't let it go to your head. But yes, I approve. You don't cower, don't gold dig, don't manipulate. You just love him. That's rare in our world. I do love him, even when he's being overprotective and stubborn." Alessandro smiled. "Those are DeLuca traits. You'll learn to work around them." His expression grew serious. "The leadership announcement is tomorrow. There will be challenges, people testing Matteo, seeing if he's strong enough to lead. Stay close to him. Let him know you're there." "Always." "Good. And Clara? Welcome to the family, officially." The leadership ceremony was held in a private room at Lucia's, the restaurant where Clara had first met Matteo. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. Representatives from New York's major families attended, along with business partners and city officials. Clara wore a navy dress that accommodated her growing belly, and Matteo kept her hand in his throughout the entire event. Alessandro stood at the front of the room, his voice strong despite his recent health crisis. 40 years ago, I took over the DeLuca family from my father. We've survived wars, economic crashes, and countless challenges. Now it's time to pass the torch to the next generation." He gestured to Matteo. "My son has a different vision than I did. He wants to build an empire on legitimate business, on honest dealings, on being a force for good in this city, rather than fear. I don't fully understand it, but I respect it, and I believe he has the strength to see it through." Matteo stepped forward, and Clara felt her heart swell with pride. He looked commanding in his dark suit, every inch the leader he was born to be. "Thank you, Papa, and thank you all for being here," Matteo's voice carried through the room. "I know some of you have concerns about the direction I'm taking the family. You've heard rumors that I'm dismantling the old ways, that I'm weak, that I'm naive. Let me be clear, I'm none of those things. I'm strategic. I'm playing a long game that ensures the DeLuca name means something positive for generations to come." He pulled Clara forward, wrapping an arm around her waist. "This is Clara Bennett. In 2 days, she'll be my wife. She's carrying my daughter, and she represents everything I'm building toward, a future based on love and family and legitimate success. Anyone who threatens her, threatens our child, threatens our future, will face consequences they can't imagine. Not because I'll resort to the old ways, but because I have resources and determination they can't match." The room was silent. Clara felt dozens of eyes on her. assessing, judging. She lifted her chin and met their gazes steadily. She'd faced down kidnappers. She could handle scrutiny. The DeLuca family is evolving, Matteo continued. We're keeping our strength while shedding our shame. We're building businesses that make this city better. And we're doing it the right way. If you can't support that vision, you know where the door is. No one moved toward the door. Alessandro started applauding, and slowly the room joined in. It wasn't universal enthusiasm. Clara saw some skeptical expressions, some crossed arms. But it was acceptance. Matteo had claimed his position, and they were acknowledging it. Later, as the event wound down, Isabella pulled Clara aside. You were perfect up there. Didn't flinch? Didn't look scared? That's exactly what this family needs. I was terrified. Good terror, the kind that makes you stronger. Isabella squeezed her hand. Now, let's get you home. We have a wedding to finish planning, and you need rest. The wedding day arrived faster than Clara expected. She woke in the guest room. Matteo had insisted on the tradition of not seeing each other before the ceremony, to find Elena and Isabella already setting up a hair and makeup station. We're doing this here? Clara asked groggily. We're not letting you out of our sight, Elena said firmly. After what happened, we're taking no chances. Clara submitted to their ministrations, letting them fuss over her hair and makeup. The dress Isabella had chosen was simple but elegant, cream silk that draped over her pregnant belly beautifully, with delicate lace sleeves. When she looked in the mirror, Clara barely recognized herself. I look like a bride, like someone about to marry the love of her life. Isabella handed her a bouquet of white roses. Ready? Was she? Clara thought about everything that had led to this moment. The broken purse, the scattered quarters, the man who'd knelt on marble floors to help her. She thought about warehouse threats and hospital conversations, and the slow, inevitable fall into love with someone completely unexpected. Yes, she said, I'm ready. The ceremony was intimate, held in Matteo's apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Only immediate family attended, Alessandro and Elena, Matteo's siblings, Simone, who'd flown back from her vacation to be there. The officiant was a judge Alessandro knew, someone who'd agreed to perform a rush ceremony. But when Clara stepped into the living room and saw Matteo waiting for her, nothing else mattered. He wore a charcoal suit that emphasized his broad shoulders, his dark hair styled perfectly, but it was his expression that stopped her breath. Pure, unfiltered love mixed with awe. She walked toward him without music or fanfare, just putting one foot in front of the other until she reached his side. His hand found hers immediately, steady and warm. You're beautiful, he whispered. You're not so bad yourself. The judge smiled. Shall we begin? The ceremony was brief but meaningful, traditional vows with personal additions. When it came time for rings, Matteo produced a simple platinum band with a single diamond, elegant and understated, exactly what Clara would have chosen. With this ring, Matteo said, his voice rough with emotion, I promise to protect you, cherish you, and stand beside you through whatever comes. You and our daughter are my family, my future, my everything. Clara's hands shook as she slipped a platinum band onto his finger. With this ring, I promise to love you, challenge you, and build this life with you. No matter how complicated, no matter how difficult. We're in this together. By the power vested in me by the state of New York, the judge intoned, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Matteo cupped her face, his thumbs brushing away tears Clara hadn't realized she was crying. Hello, Mrs. DeLuca. Hello, husband. The kiss was gentle, reverent, full of promises for the future. Behind them, Clara heard applause, and Isabella's not-so-subtle sob. But she stayed focused on Matteo, on this moment that was changing everything. The celebration afterward was small but joyful. Elena had prepared traditional Italian dishes, and Alessandro opened wine that was probably worth more than Clara used to make in a year. Stories were shared, toasts were made, and for the first time since the kidnapping, Clara felt truly safe. As evening fell, the family gradually departed. Isabella hugged Clara fiercely, whispering, Take care of my brother, and call me if you need anything. Anything. Alessandro was the last to leave. He pulled Matteo aside, speaking too quietly for Clara to hear. But when they returned, Matteo's eyes were suspiciously bright. What did he say? Clara asked after everyone had gone. That he's proud of me, that I chose well, that our daughter is lucky to have us as parents. Matteo pulled Clara close. He's never said anything like that before. He loves you. He's just not great at showing it. No, but he's trying. That's something. They stood at the windows, watching the city lights twinkle. Clara's hand rested on her belly, feeling their daughter move. Their daughter. Not just hers anymore, but theirs. What are you thinking? Matteo asked. That this is insane. 2 months ago, I was a lonely nurse dropping quarters on a restaurant floor. Now I'm married to you, living in a penthouse, part of one of New York's most powerful families. Regrets? Not even one. She turned in his arms, looking up at him. This isn't how I planned my life, but it's so much better than anything I could have imagined. Even with the danger, the complications, even with all of it, because I have you, and that makes everything else manageable. Matteo kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. I love you, Clara De Luca. I love you too. The weeks that followed settled into a new rhythm. Clara continued working at the hospital, though now with a full security detail that made her colleagues stare. Matteo threw himself into legitimizing the last of the family businesses, working 18-hour days to ensure everything was above board before their daughter arrived. Clara's apartment was repaired, but she never moved back. They sold her furniture, donated her books, and officially made Matteo's penthouse their home. She added her touches gradually, photos on the mantel, plants in the corners, a rocking chair in what would become the nursery. At 32 weeks, Clara's doctor ordered modified bed rest. Matteo immediately cleared his schedule, working from home to stay close. He brought her meals, read pregnancy books aloud, and talked to their daughter through Clara's belly. I can't wait to meet you, he whispered one night, his hand spread across Clara's stomach. I'm going to teach you everything. How to stand up for yourself, how to demand respect, how to build something meaningful. You're going to be so strong, so loved. She already is, Clara said softly. Look at the family waiting for her. Your sisters call every day asking if I've gone into labor yet. Your mother is knitting blankets. Even your father stopped by with a children's book yesterday. He did? In Italian. Said every De Luca should know their heritage. Matteo laughed, the sound full of joy. She's going to be so spoiled. Completely. And so protected. Always. No one will ever hurt her. I promise you that. Clara believed him. She'd seen what Matteo was capable of when protecting the people he loved. Their daughter would grow up safe, surrounded by family, with opportunities Clara had only dreamed of. At 37 weeks, labor started in the middle of the night. Clara woke Matteo with a gentle shake, staying calm despite the contractions. It's time. He was on his feet instantly, already pulling on clothes and calling the hospital. Within 15 minutes, they were in the car, security escort trailing them. Matteo held Clara's hand the entire way, breathing through contractions with her. You've got this, he murmured. You're the strongest person I know. Our girl is so lucky to have you as her mother. The delivery was long and difficult. 14 hours of labor, with Matteo never leaving Clara's side. He held her hand, wiped her forehead, whispered encouragement when she was certain she couldn't continue. You can do this, he said firmly. You're Clara De Luca. You've survived everything life threw at you. This is just one more challenge. Easy for you to say, you're not pushing a human out of your body. True. But I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, and in a few minutes, we get to meet our daughter. Those words gave Clara strength. One more push, then another, and then, finally, the most beautiful sound in the world, a baby's cry. She's here, the doctor announced. It's a girl. They placed the baby on Clara's chest, all pink skin and dark hair and tiny fists. Clara looked down at her daughter, their daughter, and felt her heart expand impossibly. Hi, baby girl, she whispered. We've been waiting for you. Matteo's hand stroked the baby's head, his expression one of absolute wonder. She's perfect. You're both perfect. The nurses took the baby to clean and weigh her, returning her wrapped in a soft blanket. 8 pounds, 2 ounces, 20 inches long, healthy and beautiful and absolutely theirs. Have you chosen a name? The nurse asked. Clara looked at Matteo. They discussed options but never settled on anything definite. Now, looking at their daughter, Clara knew exactly what felt right. Sophia, she said. Sofia Elena De Luca. Mateo's eyes filled with tears. Sofia for his grandmother, Elena for his mother. It's perfect. The family descended over the next few hours. Isabella arrived with balloons and flowers, already taking photos for what she declared would be the world's most beautiful baby book. Elena cried and held her granddaughter with shaking hands. Marco presented them with a ridiculously expensive stroller, claiming it was the safest model available. Alessandro came last, moving slowly with his cane. He looked at Sofia for a long moment, then at Clara and Matteo. She has your mother's eyes, he told Matteo, and Clara's strength in her chin. He touched Sofia's tiny hand with one finger. Welcome to the family, little one. You're going to do great things. As evening fell and the visitors departed, Clara found herself alone with Matteo and Sofia. The baby was asleep in her bassinet, and Matteo sat beside Clara's bed, just watching them both. What are you thinking? Clara asked. That my life started the night I picked up quarters off a restaurant floor. Everything before that was just preparation for this moment. That's very poetic for someone who's been awake for 36 hours. I'm serious. You changed everything, Clara. You made me want to be better, to build something worth passing on to her. He gestured to Sofia. This is our legacy. Not buildings or businesses, but her. The family we're creating. Clara reached for his hand. I love you. For everything you are and everything you're becoming. I love you too. Both of you. My girls. 3 months later, Clara stood in the living room of their penthouse, holding Sofia while Matteo finished a business call. Through the windows, Manhattan stretched out in all directions, the city where she'd been alone and struggling, where she'd dropped her purse and met the man who'd change everything. Sofia made a small sound, and Clara looked down at her daughter. Those dark eyes, so like Matteo's, stared up at her with perfect trust. This tiny human who'd brought them together, who'd given them purpose beyond themselves. Matteo ended his call and crossed the room, wrapping his arms around both of them. What are my beautiful girls thinking about? About how far we've come. From that restaurant to here, from strangers to family. Best journey of my life. Mine too. Sofia chose that moment to grab Matteo's finger, holding tight with surprising strength. He laughed, that full, genuine laugh that Clara loved so much. She's got a good grip, going to be tough like her mother. And compassionate like her father. They stood there as the sun set over the city, 3 people who'd found each other against all odds. The journey had been complicated, dangerous, and absolutely worth it. Clara had come to New York alone, carrying a baby she thought she'd raise by herself. She'd been broken and exhausted, gathering scattered quarters off a marble floor. Now she stood in a penthouse overlooking the city, married to a man who'd moved heaven and earth to protect her, holding a daughter who would grow up surrounded by love and family and endless possibilities. She'd thought she was invisible that night in the restaurant, just another struggling person in a city full of them. But Matteo had seen her, had chosen to help, had fallen in love with her strength, and in return, Clara had helped him become the man he'd always wanted to be. Not the heir to a dangerous legacy, but a leader building something legitimate, a husband, a father, a man choosing love over power. Thank you, Clara said quietly. For what? For kneeling on that floor, for seeing me when I felt invisible, for choosing us. Matteo kissed her temple, his arms tightening around his family. Thank you for letting me, for staying when you had every reason to run, for building this life with me. Sofia yawned, completely unconcerned with the profound moment her parents were sharing. Clara laughed, the sound full of joy. This was her life now. Not perfect, not simple, but utterly complete. And it all started with scattered quarters on a marble floor and a man who'd knelt down to help a stranger. Sometimes, Clara thought as she watched the city lights begin to sparkle, the best love stories begin in the most unexpected moments. When you're at your lowest, when you think you're invisible, when all you can do is gather the broken pieces of your life. That's when someone might kneel beside you and change everything. That's when you might find your forever in the last place you expected. That's when you might discover that being seen, truly seen, by the right person makes all the difference in the world.